This time on Dreddit.
The Poodle Mom. Hey all. So I am a dog trainer, and thus, I meet so many entitled parents and kids that I cannot count. This is my favorite story of them all, but if there will be interest, I will be posting some other stories too. So the people in this story, entitled mother, around 45 years, entitled kid, around 10 years, and yours truly, 20 years. Our dog school is very special in the area, because we have made the effort to be able to let people let their doggos free within our school, so they can play. Enforced fences, strict gate opening rules, nothing left out that could injure a dog, etc. The only rule is, that you can only let your dog play with others, if it is not dangerous. We often deal with behavior problems, which is alright, but we ask those people to first come to our special class, so the dog can get more social exercises before playing with 20 to 30 other dogs. Many people actually choose us over the other local dog school because of this rule. We are also cheaper, very cheap. We don't actually make a living out of it, just get enough to once a year upgrade something, which is also important for this story. Entitled Mom arrives with entitled kid and a very young toy poodle. It was around the size of a small cat. We welcome them like everyone else, tell them the rules and encourage them to let the dog out of their arms and put it down. They do so, and the tiny poodle begins running happily. Until there are big dogs, small dogs, and they all are running. One of the golden retrievers run over the poodle. Literally nothing happens, the poodle doesn't even stop playing. This is very normal and quite cute to look at. M begins shrieking, screaming that her baby is being hurt. Now the entitled kid is also crying that her poodle is hurt. It was not hurt. But entitled kid comes and picks it up. We patiently tell her that she should put the poodle down, because it needs to socialize and this is a perfect time. That nothing happened to it, just played happily. M then tells us that she can feel dark energy coming from the golden retriever and that they will not out the poodle down until the golden retriever is held by her owner. Side note, that golden belonged to one of our favorite people. She was coming here for 4 years, helped a lot with renovations etc. and that golden couldn't hurt a fly. We tell her that only dangerous dogs have to be held on a leash when the playtime is going on. She tells us it should be the minimum, that we hold all bigger dogs so her baby can play with the smaller ones. We sigh and explain that everybody has equal rights to play here and her dog was not hurt. They refuse to put the poodle down, we sigh and leave it. During the entire class I can hear her shrieking about the other dogs, little puppies, scaring her dog. The dog was not scared. After the class was over the playtime began again, and the woman was screaming. Entitled kid crying that her dog is hurt, again, it was not. At this point we have had enough of them harassing the other people, so we tell them sternly, that everyone is paying to be here, so deserve to have playtime and if they are that scared of other dogs then they are welcome to hold their dog the entire time or leave. She begins telling us that this is outrageous and also, she paid a lot to come here. At this point I laugh at her and tell her that she paid around €2.5 for the entire 1.5 hours of playing, training and personal help, so she is welcome to go to the other dog school for €6 45-minute classes where nobody is allowed to let their dogs go. She huffs and puffs and puts the poodle down, saying she cannot feel the dark energy anymore, because the golden left. I inform her that she did not. She is just behind the building training jumps with her owner. She got mad again and picked the poodle up. My German Shepherd has a great emotional connection to me. She knows when I hate someone and she begins to hate them too. I had her by my side because we were about to start our personal training. My dog began growling at her and she, again, began screaming that my dog is dangerous and should be put down. At this point, I began to get very angry. I told her that she is free to leave and escorted her and her crying entitled kid to the gate. We still mention this woman as the makeup monster because she had so much makeup on, I wouldn't recognize her without it.
Entitled kid hurts an aggressive service dog. Entitled parent goes supernova. Police are called. I recently saw a story about entitled kids and horses and it reminded me of an incident that took place at the end of 2019, pre-you-know-what. Backstory. A close friend of mine was adopted by a lovely old couple who had already adopted a girl who had been blinded, and had major scarring around her eyes. Important. The couple also had big dogs, the latest generation of which was a cross between a half husky, half German shepherd, that it had puppies with an Irish wolfhound. So very big, very hairy, and absolutely gorgeous doggos. They had one of these puppies trained to be a blind assistance dog for their blind daughter, as well as being trained for general help around the house. During this process the dog got very close with the blind girl and very protective, important. Anyways, on to the story. Cast: B, my friend. Z, the blinded girl, my friend's adopted sister. F, friend's adopted father. M, Karen, entitled mother. Entitled kid. Me. E, service doggo. The incident. I had gone round to B's house to see her and to get her help with some schoolwork I was doing. After finishing the work me, B and C, decided to go out for a walk and take E with us to give him his daily exercise, as this would involve going outside. Z put on a headscarf and very large, dark sunglasses to hide her scars as well as taking her white cane. Together we walked to a nearby park playing field and let E off the lead to run him around. After about 20 minutes we noticed a typical Karen and her housepawn come onto the field. I called E over and put his lead back on him, and also put his service vest on, a high-vis vest with service dog, do not pet written in big letters on both sides, so it is obvious he is working. E, being very well trained, immediately went into service dog mode and was helping Z navigate around the field. We went and sat on some benches outside the play area, about 10 meters away from M. E sat down about 2 meters away directly in front of our bench. We were just chilling and chatting when we hear squealing and running footsteps. Entitled Kid had seen E before we could react. Entitled Kid had sprinted over and charged straight into E, knocking him over and obviously hurting him as he yelped and was frantically wriggling as Entitled Kid tried to pin him to the ground whilst shouting, "Mummy! Mummy! Look at the doggy!" M didn't move or even look up from her phone. By now E was in obvious distress and B stood and grabbed the kid, lifting him off the dog and putting him down away from him whilst telling him to please not touch your dog. Entitled Kid screamed and shouted incoherently, and as soon as B put him down he punched B straight in the stomach, which made her drop Entitled Kid, and tried to tackle E again. This time however he was ready and shied away, causing Entitled Kid to trip and start crying. As if summoned by the cries of her hellspawn, Entitled Mom leapt to her feet and began screaming at us. M, what the FCK are you doing? I can't believe you'd hurt a child. Etc. All this shouting was freaking Z out and she started shaking. B, ma'am, your child attacked my sister's service dog. Please can you take him away? Entitled Mom looked at his vest and said, well, you shouldn't bring your service dog to a public park then, you fuckwit. Unfortunately Z chose this moment to speak. Z, guys, can we get out of here? Entitled Mom saw Z's headscarf and glasses and launched into a tirade about disrespect and terrorists and look at me when I'm talking to you, and grabbed Z's headscarf and glasses, pulled them off her and threw them on the ground. Two things happened nearly instantly. M began screaming in horror at the scars on Z's face. And Entitled Kid launched himself at E again. This time he snapped, he had been attacked and hurt, and now his child was being threatened. E sideswiped Entitled Kid in midair. The shoulder charged into M before standing in front of Z, showing his teeth and barking. Still screaming, M pulled out her phone and called the police while dragging her child away and yelling at us that you're all going to jail for scaring my child and bringing that into a public place. Z was understandably traumatized, so we rang F to come and help us. F and the police arrived at the same time. F came over to us to talk and the police officer took Entitled Mom's statement, then came to talk to us. After talking to B and F, the police officer asked if he had bitten Entitled Kid. We all said, no, just knocked him over. The police officer then said that Entitled Kid had cuts on his arms. Turns out Entitled Mom had deliberately cut her child to make it look like he had bitten him. Whilst we were being questioned, we had been taken about 5 meters away from the bench. Entitled Mom had let Entitled Kid go back on the park. Z was still sat on the bench and E was laying next to her. Entitled Kid decided to try again, and came charging over to E. This time however F stepped in and told him that he couldn't touch the dog as he was a service dog. Entitled Mom saw F talking to her child and flew into a rage, shouting about pedophiles and assault, and then shoved F out of the way, grabbed E's lead, knocked Z to the floor and tried to run, all in about 5 seconds. As the cops ran to grab her, he launched himself into the air to run back to Z, pulling Entitled Mom over, making her graze her arms. As she was being detained, she was shouting about how he was an aggressive dog and needed to be put down. Only to be told she was being arrested for assault and public order offenses. Long story short, Entitled Mom got fined and 8 months jail time and had to pay F and Z each something close to £5,000 for damages. Z still hates going out and had 2 fractured ribs from Entitled Kid. The dad came to pick Entitled Kid up and has since divorced him and got full custody of Entitled Kid. 6 months after the incident he went to F, B, and Z's house with Entitled Kid to force him to apologies, which Entitled Kid did then explain that his mum told him that was how he should act around dogs. Hopefully the dad can make sure he grows up to not be entitled. Thank you for reading.
Entitled mother and bratty child get their comeuppance. So I work in a cafe and dealing with loud and noisy children comes with the job, that's granted. But when dealing with entitled parents and bratty kids who show no respect for the workers or the space is where I take major issue. I've got too many of these stories and could be writing for days, but this one still makes me smile. I'll call the mother Karen, the kid will call the devil. Unfortunately, these people decided to make our little backstreet cafe their regular. Karen was always loud and tried to talk to other tables while waiting for takeaways and just being arrogant and not giving people space to enjoy their meals. The devil has no manners whatsoever, basically walks up to the barista and demands a hot chocolate, and never in an inside voice, that would be silly. So anytime they come in we know we're up for it. Then one day we see Karen trying to tie her dog up outside. It's a young Labrador about 12 months old and the sweetest pooch around. All the customers and staff then see her kick her dog because it won't stay still so she can tie it up. Side note, we have dog parking out the front with clips as a lot of the regulars have dogs and swing past to get a coffee on the way to the park. The poor pooch was just being friendly with another dog. Any reasonable person would have let them have the interaction and then when it's calmed down tie it up. But not Karen. She felt she was in a hurry and needed her coffee 30 seconds earlier. Needless to say, we were all gobsmacked. Everyone was cold to her when she walked in, but Karen, being Karen, couldn't read the room and proceeded to be obnoxious as always. And right in tow behind her the devil, who immediately demands his hot chocolate, in a big cup this time cause apparently he's a big kid now. The next day a co-worker sees her coming and warns us as they are handing out takeaway orders, during you know what restrictions, so a lot of people had to wait outside. I peek my head around the corner as Karen starts crossing the road with the cute doggo and the kid. At the same time another person was walking around the corner with their dog, so Karen's dog decides it wants to play and darts across Karen and the devil's path, inadvertently tripping both of them. As Karen was too involved in her phone she went straight down onto the pavement, also taking with her the devil. Her phone smashed to pieces and I heard a few subdued laughs. I really had to contain myself. She quickly swore loudly and the devil was railing as well. Needless to say she was embarrassed as ever and there was a good audience to enjoy it. The next day I see them walking in the neighborhood and lo and behold the devil now has a cast. Karma is definitely a bitch.
You